work harder.
And not blame others for their lack of success.
Transphobe.
As the captain, Sia is very much responsible for these boycotts, which have cost her team a playoff bid.
Guess we'll see how Sia handles all that pressure tonight.
You may have seen that spot online. It's getting a lot of traction. And it was put together by XXXY Athletics CEO Jennifer Say, who's become a good friend of mine. She will be our next guest, along with one of the stars of that ad, Sia LiiLii, who was on the volleyball team at Nevada. And they said, we're not going to play against San Jose State because they have a male playing on their team, a biological male who is a trans woman playing on their team. We're not going to play those games. So they forfeited a lot of games. They put themselves in a very tenuous position, but that leadership paid off. It's, folks, this movement it's in part of the story arc. We've had men competing against women. We've had people saying this isn't fair. Now we have a president writing an executive order, and we have the NCAA saying, okay, we'll go along with what the president says. But are they really? This thing isn't over. This thing isn't over. And I'm thrilled to have Sia and Jen Say with us next. But first, I want to tell you, AIG, American Independence Gold, is a resource that you can count on for helping to protect your wealth when times are so nuts. And, you hope that times are settling down and that things are going to go well and get better. But no matter who's in office, you don't have any guarantees about it all. So go to tafoyagold.com. That's TAFOYA gold.com. There on the screen. I'll also give you the phone number. Gold and silver are a way to help protect your wealth. And this is a veteran-owned company, which is one of the reasons I love it. 833-324-4653. I mean, for generations, gold and silver have been the ultimate safe haven because they weather wars, they weather recessions, they weather market crashes. It's more than just about owning gold. It's about taking control of your financial future. And as I mentioned, it's a veteran-owned company. So American Independence Gold goes the extra mile by supporting military families. They cover custodial fees for life on qualifying accounts, and they donate a portion of every purchase to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Do not wait to secure your future. You got to act, before you regret it and it's too late. Visit tafoyagold.com to learn more or call 833-324-4653, 833-324-4653, or tafoyagold.com. Make the smart move for your future today, tafoyagold.com. Sia LiiLii and Jennifer Say are next. Joining me now are Sia LiiLii and Jen Say of XXXY Athletics. And Sia, I want to start with you. You are currently coaching there in Oakland, California, so we don't want to keep you too long. But this spot that we're going to show in a little bit, I mean, you have been such a symbol of strength and courage in this movement to keep men out of women's sports. How has this impacted your life?
Well, I think it's changed my life. A bad situation came into mind, and I decided instead of being a victim, I decided to take hold of it and, say, no, that's not happening, and that it's not going to happen ever again. I mean, I'm a coach, as you just said. I'm coaching 13-year-olds here in Oakland, and I don't want them to have to go through what I went through in this last year of college ever. So,
Jen, I know that she hit your radar rather quickly. How did you connect with her?
Well, we saw, there were a series of college teams that stood down and refused to play against San Jose State University, a women's volleyball team fielding a male. Yeah. And Sia's team was one of those teams in Nevada. And I don't remember if it was the third or fourth or fifth, or I think there were 6 teams in total. But I think what was really unique about Sia's story that I was so impressed by, one, she was a captain of the team, but her university did not support her decision, and she did it anyway. And she's a very young person. I mean, I wish I had the courage and character at that age to do what she's done. I mean, can you imagine this
No.
institution? It's the NCAA that's against you, it's the Mountain West Conference that's against you, and then your own university. And she was like, you know what? No way, I'm doing the right thing. And I'm just so impressed. And I just want to say, this is what sports are about. How many people become Simone Biles or, become Caitlin Clark? We put our kids in sports to develop character, discipline, perseverance. And we see that so rarely. And we celebrate the athletes that are the very best. I mean, Nike just did it in their ad, which we can talk about later, which I thought was terrible.
I did too.
But we don't celebrate the character that sports are intended to develop. And to me, Sia embodied that. And so I wanted her. We reached out to her almost immediately, I think, and then I had the chance to meet her in Philadelphia at an event.
Well, Sia, tell me, how did you respond when you found out, you knew you were kind of swimming against the tide here, climbing an uphill battle, whatever kind of analogy you want to use. And you are young and you do have this courage. Where do you get it?
I credit that definitely to my parents, my siblings. I'm one of 11. So I had to learn that very quickly. We're all athletes. And I think my parents really instilled just good foundation in like what a person should be. And I credit that all to them. I mean, it takes a village. I'm also in a really big Polynesian family back home in Hawaii.
Yeah, it's something that I've experienced firsthand in that culture. I will just say that there's a strength and a courage and a determination to do what's right. What about your teammates? I think it was almost unanimous, but did you get any pushback from your teammates?
We kind of like met as a team and let everyone kind of have a voice and address what their concerns were. It was almost unanimous, and we had an understanding there's mutual respect with we can have this opinion but also respect each other at the same time. So I think I really accredit these women that I was the captain of to like find that maturity in disagreeing or agreeing to disagree.
All right. And maturity is a great word. We need more of it in this country. And then you become sort of this symbol, this walking demonstration of the courage to say, I'm not going along to get along. How about on campus? Because then your celebrity just boomed, right? So what kind of reactions were you dealing with on campus and then wherever you went to play?
Well, at first it was pretty well received, especially by the athletes. I had a lot of female athletes at Nevada come up to me and say thank you, tell me that I was doing the right thing, which was really comforting. On the school side, there was some pushback through like some DEI groups and people who honestly were just trying to push an agenda of calling me words that weren't very nice. Um, but I think just leaning on my faith is what really got me through it because it was pretty dark in that time. But just leaning on the love that I had with Jesus Christ and just always talking to him, having my good prayer time was really what brought me through it all.
See, I can't say enough about you for so many reasons. Jen and I are going to talk more about what's transpired with the executive office out of the president, out of the White House, and then the NCAA. How confident are you at this point that the NCAA really wants to do what we all agree is the right thing?
After seeing the EO, it was beautifully written. It was exactly what we wanted from President Trump. Not gonna sugarcoat it at all. I was a little disappointed by the wording in the NCAA's policy, and I hope that we can get that push to where it really is protecting our female athletes and not having loopholes or little avenues for men to still compete in women's sports.
Sia, if your time permits, I'd love to have you back on sometime just to talk about, I'd love for a ton of young women to hear from you about all of your courage, your strength, how you deal. You are a role model. I see a big future for you no matter what you decide to do. And if it had it my way, I'd say, you know what, damn it, run for office, Sia. But then again, you probably have other things you want to do, but we'll go let you coach right now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, just because it's cold outside doesn't mean you have to stop grilling. As a matter of fact, I would encourage outdoor in the cold grilling. It is, and especially if you have the right grill. Now, here's where we get to the good stuff. That would be a Solaire infrared grill. Solaire infrared grills heat up in just 3 minutes. That is a fact. They perform equally well in the cold of winter as they do in the heat of summer, and they grill food much faster. The Solaire infrared grills heat your food directly, not the air around the food like conventional grills do. The intense heat also results in the juiciest food you will ever taste from any kind of grill. I'm talking gas, charcoal, or otherwise. To get the great taste, it's all in the heat in Solaire infrared from besthotgrill.com. It gets hotter than anything you've ever experienced during the season, so you should use it in the cold as well. Try the Solaire infrared grill now with the demo program. Don't be left out in the cold. Here's where you learn more about these USA-made Solaire infrared grills. That's one of the best things made right here in America. besthotgrill.com. besthotgrill.com. Just go to besthotgrill.com. Try it before you buy it. So, Jen, you put together what so many people have seen now, this amazing spot that features Sia and Riley Gaines and her little sister. Let's just roll the spot and then we'll talk on the other side.
Riley Gaines and Sia LiiLii are in hot water over their transphobic comments, and I just gotta say, who cares if biological males play in women's sports? Just be inclusive.
Could not agree more. This is just a bunch of fear-mongering from right-wing bigots.
Gonna say it, she's a bigot.
She's been a massive distraction from her team with her hate-filled rhetoric. Sia is not inclusive. And males invading women's sports isn't even a problem, as far as I'm concerned.
These female athletes just need to work harder.
And not blame others for their lack of success.
Transphobe.
As the captain, Sia is very much responsible for these boycotts, which have cost her team a playoff bid.
Guess we'll see how Sia handles all that pressure tonight.
Okay, goosebumps again, Jen, as I watch it for the 100th time. How did it come about? What went into putting this together?
Well, Brett Craig, who's our creative director, had the idea after we had many conversations about wanting to celebrate what makes female athletes amazing. You know, the hard work, the discipline, the perseverance. And like I said earlier, we see that, you know, we see the performance with the highest ranking, most elite athletes, but these women who achieve D1 scholarships and national team rankings and state championships, they work just as hard. And they're never going to be on a Wheaties box, and they're never going to, they're never going to get a $60 million deal with Athleta like Simone Biles has. Like, those people are few and far between. But all of these women, these are the women we hear about. When you hear the statistic that over 90% of women in the C-suite were competitive athletes, it's these women. Yeah. You know, they weren't Olympians per se. And we wanted to celebrate the hard work, perseverance, discipline, that willingness to kind of fall down and get back up, all those life skills. That's why we put our daughters, our children in sports. And then we started talking about how for those who stand up and dare, defend the integrity of women's sports, on top of all of that, punishing hard work, 4 a.m. wake ups, running and all the crazy and difficulty, they have to put up with harassment and bullying and threats and name calling and threats to their livelihood. I mean, these girls are told, if you stand up, you'll never get a job. Yeah. That's what Paula Scanlon was told. Imagine being told that at 21.
Paula Scanlon, of course, who swam at UPenn and was told to shut up about Leah Thomas.
Yeah. And so we wanted to show that because these women have such strength of character, and I'm just in total admiration of them. I never could have done it at 21, I don't think. So that was really the idea. And then we started to try to figure out who the athletes were. And we want to show a range of athletes and a range of sports because it looks cool, frankly. And, you see the full range of athleticism. We knew we wanted Sia from the outset. JC Bassett is the Taekwondo athlete you see there. She's got a world ranking. She's very young and just so outspoken. And then Neely Gaines is the gymnast. She's Riley's sister, and she's a Tennessee State champ. And I mean, gymnastics, I'm a former gymnast, so I have a bias there, but I just think it's so beautiful. I think it requires the most athleticism of any sport. My husband would disagree with me, so I wanted, it was my deep, sincere desire to have a gymnast, and then Riley's in it, of course.
Yeah, that was a great kind of 2-for-1 because everyone recognizes Riley now, and like you said, the courage Riley has shown from the get-go has been nothing short of remarkable because she is so young. We have to take that into account, and you're going against this sort of woke agenda and attitude when you're still in college or just out. And it's, a lot of people, even though maybe inside they agree with Riley, it's not cool to say so. What was great about this, and I got a sneak peek at the spot and I loved it from the instant. And then I wake up one morning and J.K. Rowling has reposted the spot on X with comments saying, "This is probably the first and only time I will ever repost an ad, but this thing is beautiful." And I know that you woke up that morning and your phone had blown up after seeing it. J.K. Rowling, who has probably got maybe the largest platform on X. She's got millions of followers and talks so strongly and forcefully about her feelings on this issue. You wake up to that. I don't know. How did that hit you? How did that hit you?
It was crazy. Yeah, she has 14.5 million followers on X, certainly the largest account and the most famous person who is dogged on this issue. I can't think of anyone else who comes close. We had launched it the day before on Sunday and got some traction, but not as much as I was hoping for. It didn't kind of take off and soar instantly, which sometimes happens, and that's fine. So I went to bed a little bit okay, I got to kind of pick myself up tomorrow and get at it again and, keep pushing to get this thing out there because we put zero paid media behind this ad. So I want to come back to that, given the number of views we've had. But I woke up in the morning to about 30 texts from friends that J.K. Rowling had shared the ad saying she never does this. But what I said in response, because she said, "I'll never share an ad," but I said, think of it as a piece of film. It really is a piece of art. I mean, we have very high standards. We're not trying to put, low-end dreck out there. And I think we capture that. It's a 2-minute short film, really, that I think very succinctly captures the bravery and the courage of these young women.
We talked about the Super Bowl, the Nike ad. It had been a long time since Nike had put an ad in a Super Bowl, which is kind of unusual, really. Maybe they just didn't need to because everyone's wearing their shoes all over the field. But they put out this ad about these top female athletes. And it was the tired old stuff, Jen. It was they say you can't win. They say you can't fill, stadiums. And as my husband and I are watching this, he turns to me and he says, "Said nobody ever." I mean, where? So that was really disappointing.
Maybe 30 years ago.
Correct.
They're operating in the world that is 1990 or 1985 or whatever. But, the lines are, you got it exactly right. They say you can't win, so win. They say you can't fill stadiums, so fill stadiums. Caitlin Clark fills stadiums. They say you can't be confident. Be confident. Simone Biles, who is not in the ad, I am aware of this. People have called me out for citing her. I know it's Jordan Childs, but Simone Biles wears a leotard that says the GOAT on the back. She's allowed to be confident. We cheer it. So it's like fighting it at this false enemy to position themselves as heroic when they really aren't taking a stand at all for the one issue that actually does threaten female athletes in women's sports.
And they've never said anything about it. And I doubt they ever will because they don't want to offend. Okay, let's get into the NCAA now before we wrap up here because we talked about, and Sia talked about this wonderful executive order. The executive order was written by May Mailman, who's been on this show. You liked the way the EO was written, correct?
100%.
So it ticked all the boxes that you wanted. And then The NCAA said, well, you know what? Now that we have guidance from the president, we're going to follow that guidance. And they put together a policy that you've read through and I've read through and many people have read through and gone, hold on a second. Well, for months now, I've been telling you about sleep cream, and I'm not going to change my tune because it still works beautifully for me. It is a CBD based product that I apply to my insides of my wrists, maybe the bottoms of my feet at bedtime, and it helps me sleep. So yeah, I know it sounds too good to be true. I was a skeptic and then I tried it. You know who else tried it? Veronica M. She said it really works. I was not confident using this because I've tried many CBD creams for sleep and have had no results. However, this cream, the 3,000 milligram cream, very quickly relaxed me and allowed me to sleep at least 5 hours. It has no side effects, no morning grogginess. I can attest to that as well. Nothing, just good, relaxing relaxation. I rub 3 pumps onto the bottoms of my feet and wrists and wait for the peace to come. This cream is a game changer for the sleep challenged. It was for me too, Veronica. It was a game changer. And that's why it's on my nightstand and I use it every single night. Sleep cream. Listen, give it a try. If it doesn't work well for you, you can just get your money back. Guaranteed. You don't even have to send the product back. Go to sleepcream.com, and cream is spelled CREME, sleepcream.com. And for the next few weeks, use the code GAMEDAY, all one term, at checkout for free standard shipping on your first order. Sleepcream.com, sleep CREME, code GAMEDAY for free standard shipping off your first order. I think you're going to love it. And by the way, Salem Podcast Network has a new way you can follow the Trump administration. Keep up with it when you subscribe to the Trump Report. This email brings you daily highlights from the Oval Office right to your inbox 5 days a week. Subscribe at salempodcastnetwork.com/Trump. The NCAA said, well, you know what? Now that we have guidance from the president, we're going to follow that guidance. And they put together a policy that you've read through and I've read through and many people have read through and gone, hold on a second. I could see how someone could get around about 9 of these bullet points here and still compete as a biological male. What's going on, Jen?
Yeah. So first of all, they released it about 12 hours later, certainly in under a day. So clearly it was written before the EO came out. So there was some behind the scenes shenanigans. They couldn't have written it that quickly. When I first read the short form on the surface, I was like, okay, progress. Now, you know, I thought Charlie Baker's not doing the right thing because he has any sort of spine or backbone. He's doing it reluctantly because he has to. Just months earlier, he said there's really no evidence that males are stronger than females, which is like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Charlie Baker's the president of the NCAA.
Right.
So this EO comes out and I start to dig into it and look at it more closely, and it's riddled with loopholes. But the biggest one I would like to point out that will ensure that in practice it does not achieve the executive order's stated intention. The biggest loophole is the evidence that is needed to be provided to the school that one is female and can compete in women's is a birth certificate. That's it. That's the evidence, not a cheek swab, not sort of genetic material of any kind, but a birth certificate. So I started Googling. In all but 6 states, you can change your birth certificate. You can even change your social security card, which, Michelle, I just learned that 2 days ago. Like, I find this so dystopian. It's so Orwellian that we can literally change the record of history. You know, dress however you want. You were born XY. That's what your birth certificate should say. So you can change it. And there are governors like the governor of Washington who is now saying, you know, amidst this flurry of EOs, we are going to accelerate processing of these birth certificate requests. And I then went into my state, Colorado. What's required to change your birth certificate? Because you can do it here. It's literally self-ID. Like, not that it would be okay if you got a doctor's note, it wouldn't. But all you have to do is fill in the form and say, I'm a woman, and you can change your birth certificate. That's it. There's no sort of proof, like you could provide me proof, evidence, nothing. So to me, there's a million loopholes, but that's the biggest and most egregious one.
Well, and we've seen undercover videos of someone going into a school and saying, you know you don't allow trans athletes to compete in women's sports, but is there any wiggle room? And well, if you get your birth certificate changed, and you could probably do that in New Jersey or wherever, we wouldn't know that. I mean, it's not like it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it is going to happen. I did see that one. I mean, there's more very basic, straightforward instructional videos that you can find on TikTok. Here's how you do it. Here's the paperwork. Go fill in the form. You can get it accelerated if X, Y, and Z, and all these governors are accelerating it. So, will we see it immediately? Will we see it tomorrow? Maybe not. But this policy is filled with holes, and it will not. And it lets the NCAA do this. This is what really frustrates me. It goes like this. Because they also take no accountability. They're not the ones responsible for validating, right? It's the school. So basically, no one's taking any accountability here. Now, what I do think will happen is there will be all sorts of lawsuits. I mean, and the Department of Justice is going to pursue schools that they're already looking at California and Minnesota, who have said they're not going to abide by the EO. They could lose federal funding. So there's going to be all sorts of lawsuits. We need legislation, plain and simple. We need national legislation. We need state legislation. But the other point I would make, and I think too many people don't understand this, the sports policy landscape is very complicated, and all these different pillars of sports have different governing bodies. So even if we were able to get these holes closed up in the NCAA policy, people that compete in the Olympic movement, that's where I competed. Even as a 6-year-old, in gymnastics, it was in the Olympic movement, meaning governed by the U.S. Olympic Committee. That's unaffected by the EO. Right. 2 times as many athletes compete in the Olympic movement as under the auspices of Title IX. So, and then you have like the Boston Marathon, which, as you know, has qualified a male in the women's category for this April. That's its own governance, its own board, its own everything, only accepts private funding, no federal funding. So we've got like a really long way to go here, and it's a complicated landscape, and you kind of have to knock it off one by one. And my feeling, what I can do, what I'm trying to do with the brand, is really change the cultural conversation. Because I think once the people stand up and say, hell no, that all these governing bodies will fall in line.
Oh, we need more people to stand up and say hell no. That's why I admire Sia so much. She put her collegiate season on the line, and she led her team to follow along. So it's not like she was out alone in the ocean there. They all wanted to do it, or as she said, for the most part wanted to do it. Yeah. And they did it. And it was beautiful to watch. You talk about all these governing boards and, will the NCAA change this and will it get codified? For you, where you're sitting and what you're looking at, what's the next step that needs to happen after this EO? Is it from the White House? Is it now we've got to get it into legislation and get it codified?
Yeah, which isn't the White House, obviously.
Right.
I think we need national legislation. I think we need state level legislation. The problem with state by state is if one state has it and another doesn't, and the 2 schools are competing against each other, what happens? So again, I feel like my role and what I can do is rally the people. 80% of Americans apparently agree with us, Michelle, but and I know it doesn't feel like that. Even now, as the tides are turning, it really doesn't. I mean, I just got a postcard in my mailbox 2 days ago, calling me a racist, bigot, blah, 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 which that's the first time I've gotten actual mail, which is alarming because it means they, know where you live. I think it's someone that knows where I live because they live in my neighborhood. Forget about that. But the other side, they're not admitting that they're wrong. They're doubling down. They're fear mongering. They're never going to admit they're wrong. First they say this isn't happening. This is ridiculous. Then you point out that it's happening, and they say, well, it's good that it's happening. There's a great video with Michael Knowles, I think.
I just saw that this morning. My claim
here is in other areas? My actual claim here is that transgenderism is false, and we should eradicate it from public life because it's harmful to everyone.
Okay,
that's my actual. If you want to talk about the claim, we're actually
about that. Yeah. What does transgenderism in public look like to you?
It's allowing men to be treated for the purposes of the law as women. It's men taking 900 sports trophies from women in recent years.
And they didn't take 900.
They took 900. There's a report just came out from the United Nations, actually. 890 trophies and medals across 600 women who were competitors, across 29 different sports and 400 competitions. That came out like yesterday.
And they deserved them.
It didn't happen, and they deserve them. Okay, that is the logic I hear from the pro-trans crowd.
Which is the typical, right? It's like, it's not happening. Well, it's good if it is because it's social justice, whatever. So they're not. And then you have the AOCs of the world and, these folks in Congress who are saying if we have the hard, fast rule like this, it's going to lead to genital checks, which is absurd. Right
That's
now,
absurd.
it's just a birth. It's the dumbest
that
thing
is so
ever.
dumb. It's that's part of the fear mongering. That's part of the left wing. They're going to need to reach into between your legs and find out. No, there are plenty of other ways to find out what your chromosomal makeup is.
Very simple, non-invasive ways. A simple cheek swab, which, by the way, you can achieve with just spitting. You don't even have to put anything inside the cheek. So I think national legislation, contact your senator. It did pass in Congress with only 2 Democratic Congress people supporting it. And it has now, I don't know what the right language is, but it is not going to the Senate at this point for a vote. They've decided there are other more pressing things, but I think, call your senator.
Yeah.
I think there are various state ballot initiatives. We're pushing for one here in Colorado, which I'm very involved in.
Good.
But I think just show where you are with this issue, put out the yard sign, wear the t-shirt, make your daughter's sports club aware that you won't tolerate boys on your daughter's team. I mean, unless it's a club that's the whole premise.
Right.
Because I think once it's clear, I think the Democrats are still able to get away with the things that they say and believing they're the majority, even though they're 20%, because there are too many in this silent majority that are silent.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right. People can't be afraid anymore. This is why you have free speech, folks, to speak up when it's needed. Jen say it's always great to visit with you. By the way, I'm loving this XXXY shirt, this athletic top I'm wearing. Not only is the color tremendous, but it's so comfortable to work out in. Thank you.
Oh, good. Yes. And there's a new one in that tee that has a logo on it. Because one of the things we found, Michelle, is people really prefer stuff with the
logo.
They're rejecting stuff that isn't loudly branded. We wanted to provide options for people who maybe didn't want to scream quite as loud. But we now have that same shirt, which is what I work out in as well, that has loud and proud branding on the front.
I got to get that one. I will get online and go purchase one. Just as J.K. Rowling's husband bought a few things too. It's great to talk to you, Jen. We keep up the good fight, and we will do it again.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Michelle.
As always, folks, be brave, do good. You can do both of those things by speaking up for women, keeping women's sports for women. And we'll see you next time.